Weencast, a Ween podcast with Shane and Rory.
Hey, what's up? This is Shane.
And this is Rory.
And this is Weencast. And we welcome you to a new episode.
Hell yeah. Hello, everybody.
We are back, and it feels good. It has been a little while, and we're going to go back to our youth once again and talk about a show that we had went to back in the day. Before we get to that, we'd like to remind everyone to hit us up on Patreon. Patreon.com/weencastpodcast. We have a brand new exclusive episode to Patreon.
Hell yeah.
That we are calling Ween on Vinyl. It is all about the miscellaneous Ween releases on vinyl through the years. The original pressings versus the re-releases. Some of the most sought after Ween releases like the live Brain Wedgie, and just about record collecting versus digital in general. It's a lot of fun, and here's a little sneak peek.
Yeah, so check it out.
The first time I ever noticed it was when I bought the box set. Okay, so Plain Records or Plain Recordings released the box set of the country album, The Mollusk, and White Pepper. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
The actual vinyl itself of all three of them, I mean, it looks beautiful. You know, the country album is on brown vinyl. The Mollusk is on a cool, like, green, like, splattered, like, green and blue vinyl. And then the White Pepper is on white vinyl. So, like, that's pretty cool, and, like, they feel real heavy and whatnot. But you put these on the turntable, and they definitely do not sound as good as the original pressings.
Is it called Plain Recordings because it is a plain recording?
Okay. So to hear that whole thing, hear the whole conversation, it's over an hour long. Hit us up on Patreon. Again, patreon.com/weencastpodcast.
What's up, Ween heads? It's Travis from West Brandywine Woodworks here. I'm back with an exclusive offer for Weencast listeners only. As you know, West Brandywine Woodworks creates handmade items for the home, and I would like to extend a 10% discount on all orders and free shipping on all cutting board and serving tray purchases over $100. Just mention Weencast when you place your order. It's that simple. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram. Don't forget to mention Weencast for your 10% off and free shipping on board orders over $100. And, as an added bonus, I'll even hand deliver to you if you're within 30 miles of the shop. For quality you can depend on, come to West Brandywine Woodworks and mention Weencast. Boognish lives!
The show that we are going to get into tonight from our youth is the end of the spring tour from 2001, which was April 6th, 2001, Norfolk, Virginia at the Norva.
Yeah, the Norva, bitches. Yeah, 2001. That was actually my only show in 2001, interestingly enough. I believe you saw them 3 times in 2001 at least.
Yeah.
But I only saw them once in 2001 at the Norva.
Yeah. So this is the end of the tour, and it seems like so long ago that we talked about the show at the Trade Winds, which was March of 2001. So that was the beginning of that spring tour, and now this is the end, and it's sort of like the infamous No Glenn tour. So Glenn was not with them on keyboard. There was no keyboards for this tour. And this was the last show.
Yeah, it was a Fast and Furious tour. It only started back in March, right? And this is April 6th. Just a few weeks, but it was a lot of shows, right? Or am I misremembering?
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's basically just like the whole month of, well, it's not even the whole month of March. It basically started in late March and just went to the beginning of April. So that was it.
Yeah.
So it's just a lot of dates in a very, well, not even a lot of dates. What is it, about 10 or 11 dates just right at the end of March in 2001.
Yeah, but no Glenn. Definitely notable, and we'll get back to that.
No Glenn for this show. So
kind of the Enter Sandman era.
This is when this is when they were hitting it up with Enter Sandman basically on like every night of that tour. I don't think they really busted it out after that all that much. Maybe a couple of times. I'd have to check.
No, it was almost exclusive to this tour, I believe.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few. You're right. There's a few other instances, but not many.
That is funny as hell.
Yeah, it is.
So we're gonna get into everything that we can remember about this show. But I have to say right off the bat, I was mentioning to Rory, I think that this show, of all of the concerts I've ever been to, I have like the least amount of memories of this show and this venue, and not for any sort of like good reason. Basically because we only made it to the venue for a very brief period of time to actually catch any of this show. So we'll get into the whole thing.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I'm in the same boat as you. Of all the shows that I've seen, this one I've always considered to be the worst one, to be honest. I'm just laying it out for you. But most of it has nothing to do with the show itself, but it was a really grueling adventure. It was more than an adventure. It was like some kind of like crazy epic journey to get down there. And so it was really grueling to get to and from. We kind of bit off more than we could chew on that one. And I think that really kind of shaded my experience, and so, but anyway, it's, and all I really remembered about it, dude, was, oh, well, Glenn wasn't part of it, so whatever. But, re-listening to it, I definitely totally appreciated a lot more than I did, like, before.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like the actual music itself, I really can't say anything bad about it. I mean, when you go back and you listen to, the recordings from this show, it is a great show. It really was. It's just a damn shame because we barely made it. So should we talk about how we got down there and what our day was like that day?
Yeah, dude. So so like I said, it was like a crazy journey. It was like an epic journey, and it started with the fact that Shane was living back in like the Reading area at the time, and I was still in State College, and I didn't have a car or anything. So the plan was, okay, I'll get a Greyhound bus and take that from State College and like get it to Reading, so Shane will pick me up at the bus terminal and we'll go down. Well, it turned out that I had to get to Harrisburg, and then Shane had to come pick me up in Harrisburg. So anyone who's ever ridden on the Greyhound knows that, contrary to like the Megabus and like the Bolt and shit like that, that's like more or less in like bigger cities, and they are in State College now I think. But the Greyhound like stops everywhere. So it goes in and out of all kinds of little towns between like State College and Harrisburg. So that was like already like a couple hours just to get to Harrisburg.
Yeah.
A car from State College to Harrisburg would be like 90 minutes, give or take. The bus was like 2.5 hours. But yeah, so, and you had to come get me in Harrisburg. So anyway, dude, as I recall, you were still driving the Horizon. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes. So I had my first car, which was it was a 1986 Plymouth Horizon. So this was probably one of the last shows that this car would make an appearance, because I'm pretty sure it was later that year that car finally just had enough and finally stopped running. It always had timing issues, like timing belt issues, and it finally got to the point where it was so bad that it wasn't even like worth fixing anymore. but it was later that year.
Yeah, that's sad. That's a sad story because the Horizon was a big part of our like adolescence, man, growing up, and this was the It was also like had done some other big Ween trips, like the trip up to Buffalo was in the Horizon.
Yeah, man.
And so this was definitely the biggest one, and then the Buffalo one's pretty close, I guess. But it makes me a little Boys to Men, It's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday.
Yep.
But Horizon, like we pour out some Hennessy for that.
Totally.
But yeah, dude. So we're cruising down and map questing it and shit because this is 2001, and we just hit DC. It was a Friday, right? Is that right? A Friday?
Yes.
Yeah, dude. So being young and stupid, you don't reckon with Friday traffic in DC, and so we're like hitting the Beltway like basically during like rush hour, and it was just non-pack. I mean, we were stuck in hours of traffic getting around DC, and at one point, dude, there was like a car like on fire, like on the side of the road, just like on fire. Just like nothing putting it out, just like, and like no one was in it. It was just like on fire by the side of the road. It was like crazy.
Yeah, so like I just remember being in like this crazy gridlock of traffic, and I mean just like bumper to bumper, like 4 lanes, like no one is moving at all, and then finally coming up to this car on the side of the road, just completely like engulfed in flames.
It was like a bad omen.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it would wind up to be a bad omen for the whole like trip, basically. But it was kind of like one of those things where it was like, okay, what happened here? How long ago did this happen? And is anybody even going to be able to like get at this car to like put this fire out? Like this traffic is just so bad. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
They're going to have
Totally.
to like fight their way to get like the fire trucks and shit here to like, so I don't know if we were. Obviously we were there before, any of like the like first responders and like the emergency crew got there, which was probably a good thing, but we still just like sat in this crazy traffic, for this, what I'm assuming was an accident. I don't remember any other cars. I just remember there was one car just completely lit up,
Yeah, dude. Well, no doubt there was that accident, and there very well could have been others. But the Beltway on a Friday evening is a terrible thing to like get stuck in.
Right.
And we were young and didn't know that, and that kind of hurt.
I also do kind of remember that was just like part 1. That was just like the first initial part of the terrible traffic. Like it was only going to get worse like after that.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it took us a while.
Yeah, there was much more like traffic problems to come even after that.
Dude, I mean, what should have taken like 5 hours took like 8 or 9 hours, I swear. And
yeah.
Anyway, dude, so we get down there, and I don't have a memory of exactly how late we were. I want to say 45 minutes to an hour. It could have been longer. Could have been later than that. That could have been one of those like the old like, well, if we hurry in, they're just gonna have the credits on. Like, oh, it'll just be the opening credits. Won't miss the movie. Hurry up. Like, just thinking like, oh, well, if there's an opening band, maybe we won't miss that much of it. Wanting to be really hopeful on the way down that we weren't going to miss much. I don't remember it was a lot, dude. Like, we missed a good amount of the show.
Man, I mean, I have
bummer.
Total bummer. I mean, I know that like when we went past the car on fire, it was still daylight. I remember that. And by the time that we had actually gotten to the Norva, pitch black, like we are well into the night. It took that long.
Oh yeah, and this is early April. So the days aren't, too long, They're still like, shorter.
Right. But I also kind of remember somehow getting like a baller parking space like right across the street, which I don't know if it was kind of like one of those things where it was like, all right, we're probably not supposed to park here, but guess what? We're too fucking late and I just don't care. You know what I mean? Like, we're just going to roll the dice, take our chances that the car is still going to be here when the show lets out, and we're just fucking parking right here.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we're here, just park the fucking car.
Well, to be honest, I don't really remember, but it sounds right. It sounds good. And it ended up working out because thankfully didn't have any issues with the car being lost to get home. The getting home's a whole nother story, so we'll get to that
right
at the end of the story. That was just enough to get down there.
From my memory of like how far the show was into it when we like came in, I really can't remember, but I want to say the show was already like 2/3 like over. You know what I mean? It was, I really can't recall.
I gotta say it wasn't quite that far in, but I don't know. I mean, you could be right.
It probably wasn't, but it just sucks so bad like that we didn't get to see this.
Well, dude, and the other part of the before we actually get into talking about the show, because we were in fact there for much of the show and we still heard a lot of it, so we still have a lot to talk about, guys. But yeah, I don't even remember much about the actual venue and stuff because we got there so late. We just kind of tried to get in to listen to the music. And even then, we were stuck way in the back.
Yeah.
And back then, we were both smokers. So I remember that as a venue that didn't allow smoking. So they had a special smoking lounge area. And after, like, I guess probably dealing with a couple songs, just being, like, stressed out and being, like, forgive me, anyone, but being, like, a douchey smoker, it's kind of like, oh, let's go have a cigarette, So I do remember, like, hauling up. And some crazy, like, it's like institutional, like these industrial, like concrete, like stairwell to like nowhere. And like going up like several flights of stairs to pop out on this weird, like closed off but open air, like smoking area. It was just like really kind of inhospitable, just sort of all these people huddled around smoking cigarettes. But that was like where we were allowed to smoke. And we probably weren't in the smoking area too long, but that was also pulling away from the music for a little bit too. I mean, you could still hear the music, but like not being like focused on the like actual like concert floor.
Well, I think when you get to the point where you realize like, okay, we're not here in any kind of time to get like a decent spot. Like we're so far back into the crowd, you know what I mean? That at that point you kind of give up. All right, fuck it. Like we might as well just go smoke or whatever and hang out. It's like you're not really going to be able to see much of anything because you're so fucking far back that you just sort of like give up,
Yeah, and in our earlier era, for sure, dude, we really valued being right up front. Like we always wanted to be like the fuckers that were like right up there.
Oh yeah.
So or as close as we could get. So to be stuck all the way back, and I seem to recall that was being a fairly largish venue. Again, I don't remember much, but I remember being fairly big in the sense that like if you were all the way stuck in the back, you were pretty far away from the musicians.
Yeah, I mean it had sort of like an Electric Factory feel to it from what I remember, like being kind of like narrow but very like long.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it wasn't very wide and we were sort of like stuck on what would have been the Glen side, like the opposite side of Diener.
Yeah, totally.
And just kind of like all the way in the back. Like just, no one behind us. We're so far back, that kind of thing, like on the floor. So that definitely plays into, I can totally see us being like, fuck it, let's just go out and grab a cigarette. And we could probably like still hear it, but not good enough, not like you want to be able to hear it,
Yeah. I mean, just more peripheral. But, such as it is, every, what the hell, dude? Every experience isn't going to be glorious. But,
right.
But I do want to say that, and we should get into, like, the songs, I think. Unless you got something else you want to mention about getting there. But it was still, like, a great show, dude. Like, listening back on it, like, this has been, and I've said this before, so I'm a little bit of a broken record, but one of the things about doing this podcast has been that it's fun to go down memory lane and, like, check out the shit and, like, re-listen to shows and remember them as better than I remembered them, or so it was pretty awesome to have a show that we both didn't really have a lot of memories of the show and like what happened and stuff, and then to listen to it and be like, damn, that was good.
I think I might have like not even gotten like the bootlegs of this show until like way later. You know what I mean? And then, I probably listened to them like once. And because I know I have the CDs. Like, I know I had CDs from years and years ago. But they definitely were not ones that I like listened to a lot. You know what I mean? And probably for that same reason is just like, well, I missed so much of it that it wouldn't even be fun to like listen to the bootlegs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But going back and listening to it again, like I said, this was a badass show. It's just a shame for us in our experience that we didn't have a better time and a better night with being able to catch more of it.
Yeah, dude. Well, and being an admitted Glennite, not having Glenn there. Now, you were at the Tradewind show, so you had already seen a Glenn-free show. Although,
right.
One of the things that will, in comparison, contrast, this was a good show, but the Tradewinds was really kind of another level altogether, like brown and hardcore, even over this show. But this was a good show, so you had already had a little taste of the Glenn free. But for me, and I was really digging Glenn, like, I feel like, White Pepper, and this is like still the White Pepper era in the sense of that was the last like album to come out.
Yeah.
And he is such a critical part of White Pepper that it's just kind of like, for me at that time, it was just like, oh, Glenn. And so I know that combine the whole negative experience of the trip and like being so late and missing some of the show, combined with, oh, well, Glenn wasn't even there anyway. Like, I just sort of discounted it in a sense. But, to my own, dismay, because when Glenn's not, what you find is that, dude, I mean, everyone else, in particular Diener, but everyone else like ups their game in like a browner way. And like,
totally,
and so Diener really rocks out a lot of fucking awesome jams and solos in this show, and like really shreds the guitar for a lot of songs. Some of them are songs, that are like kind of the regulars, and some of them are rarities and whatnot. But Diener really comes out to bat. But you miss Glenn, dude. I miss Glenn. There's so many situations where you really take it for granted, all the cool like ambiance and like sort of instrumental shit that he's laying down, like the keys and stuff on a lot of those tracks. Times when he does like call and response with Diener and stuff, and obviously many songs feature like little solos of his.
Right.
So you miss Glenn, but you know what? Like, this is a facet of Ween, right? Like, this is like, hey, it was a little time period and Glenn wasn't part of the story. And that's just the way it is. Like, there's many permutations of Ween. But as we continue to discuss it and talk about the songs that were played and whatnot, that'll keep coming up, the whole like absence of Glenn. So that's totally like a recurring theme for this show.
Right. So do you want to read the set list or should I?
Well, why don't you go for it?
Okay. So HIV Song, The Golden Eel, The Stallion Part 3, Don't Get Too Close to My Fantasy, Waving My Dick in the Wind, Nan, Dr. Rock, Voodoo Lady, Mutilated Lips, Take Me Away, Tick, The Going Gets Tough from the Get-Go, Mr. Would You Please Help My Pony, The Stallion Part 5, Buckingham Green, Piss Up a Rope, Spinal Meningitis, The Final Alarm, The Mollusk, Sorry Charlie, I'll Be Your Johnny on the Spot, Never Squeal on the Pusher, Can't Put My Finger on It, Hot for Teacher, Unfinished, Enter Sandman, Stroker Ace, You Fucked Up, Licking the Palm for Guava, Mushroom Festival in Hell, and LMLYP.
Really, dude. I mean the heavy metal kind of imprint, that like hardcore imprint is all over the place, dude. Especially when you think about the ending, Hot for Teacher, which they don't finish, but that's like Van Halen, and then you got Enter Sandman, dude. Come on. And then
you know what's really cool about this show? I don't mean to cut right to the end. Just kind of this just sort of like dawned on me is like, if they would have finished Hot for Teacher, you'd have like basically every like show ending like song. You know what I mean? It's like Hot for Teacher, Enter Sandman at the time, Licking the Palm for Guava / Mushroom Festival in Hell, and LMLYP. The only thing you're really missing would be Buenos Tardes.
Yeah.
you know, that's like the whole gamut of shit that gets broken out at like the end of the show, and you'd be happy with any just one of them.
Totally. Well, dude, and like, and so many. That's like a really take off LMLYP for a second at that, and you know, you got. I can't put my finger on it. We'll go back to the beginning in a second, but you know, that's like an extended jam song. But then you got Hot for Teacher, Enter Sandman, Stroker Ace, You Fucked Up, and Licking the Palm for Guava and Mushroom Festival in Hell. That's like one hell of a like a heavy metal block.
Oh yeah.
You know, like that's pretty. You know all the. You know what I mean, dude? Like that's
yeah, it's great.
You know, and so that's like what you getting when you don't have Glenn. You know, like that's like, you know, and that the influence of God, Ween, Satan was 7 songs from God, Ween, Satan. It's the most of any album for this show for this show. So you really get some really brown, awesome shit that you know, and Diener's just shredding it on these songs. I mean, it's pretty fucking cool. But but let's kind of go to the top of the set list.
Well, there's a couple of things that sort of like permeate throughout the show, just in terms of like stuff that they're like talking about and stuff, which is apparently there was a hot tub backstage.
So I was actually wondering, is that real? Was he bullshitting us? Was he bullshitting a bullshitter?
I apparently not, because you know, both Gina and Diener bring it up like a couple of times.
Dude, that's fucking baller. Can someone out there give us confirmation? Anyone out there know about the Norva? Is there really a hot tub back there? Or maybe there's like a legend like, oh, it was there until 2005. And then, you know, like some like, you know, like Alice, some dude like died in it, you know, boozing, they like tore it out or something.
Some torrid tale of rock and roll from the Norva.
Alice Cooper. Or is he still alive? My bad.
Yeah, but supposedly they had a hot tub and sauna. They bring up, and someone must have been, from the crowd must have been throwing some kind of balls, because like I swear it's like in between like every track you hear you know, like Claude was the first one to bring it up, just like, you can stop throwing those fucking balls right now. I'm telling you right now, stop throwing the balls. And then they like play a couple of songs, and then they like say it again, like, hey, stop throwing the fucking balls. It's like, what the fuck? Like, who's throwing? What are these balls? And who's throwing them at?
Dude, and get the hint. You know, like the band doesn't like them. Like, stop throwing them, dude.
They're trying to tell you to knock it the fuck off. Like, what the fuck? But I mean, that's like, what is some dude with just like a pocket full of super balls or something? Like, how, you know, how else could he have that many balls to throw on stage? You know?
Yeah, dude.
But anyway, just really,
who even knows?
It's just really, really funny. I mean, I also kind of get the feeling that, you know, we mentioned this is the end of that little tour, and they seem to be like really having fun with it. You know what I mean? And it's just really, okay, whatever happens, happens. And I mean, they're all on fire, obviously, because they're just at the top of their game at this era, but you can tell that they're definitely sort of like a little bit more laid back and, you know, fuck it, you know, like let's just do whatever, you know, that kind of thing. There's a really cool intro to Don't Get Too Close to My Fantasy, and there's an extra little mini funk jam into the beginning of Voodoo Lady.
Yeah, no, Voodoo Lady, I'm on a broken record for Voodoo Lady as well, because it's such a common song, but I feel like this whole era, at like late 90s to early 2000s, like there's a lot of variety in how they play it.
Totally.
Like, I feel like they seem to be several different like ways that they play it, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, you know, you can tell that they're starting to get into like, you know, let's just jam this shit out a little bit. Let's just, you know, and back in those days when they're doing like so many shows, when there's so many dates for, you know, this is coming off of the year of 2000, so there's just, you know, cram-packed with dates. They have to do things to sort of like entertain themselves too, you know? Mm-hmm. So it's like, totally. Let's just fucking play around with it, you know? So like, of course, Voodoo Lady is great. And then I guess the next thing that I jump to is Going Gets Tough from the Get-Go.
Oh, that's always great.
I mean, I don't know if this was the first time that we had been to a show where they played it. I can't remember if we were there yet at that point, but I mean, yeah, that's just always totally sweet. And just, I think this is right about the beginning of when they started playing it live, if I'm not mistaken, was around this time. It's a lot of, they played Go and Get Stuff from the get-go a lot in like the early 90s, and then it looks like on Brown Bass, like they broke it out a couple of times in 96, once in 2000, and then basically like that whole tour of 2001. It looks like they played that basically like every night.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like is the first time that song is starting to like come around again, from since like the early 90s. So that's pretty cool.
Yes, that's true. Well, we went by the Go and Get Stuff from the get-go. The Stallion Part 5, dude. I don't know if that was the one next on your list, but that's always a fucking pleasure. And that was only the 12th time that was played live, and
right.
62 total. So that was pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah, man. I mean, I love Stallion Part 5. It might be my favorite Stallion,
And definitely would have been the first time we heard it, I think, for sure. Unless you heard it at Trade Winds. Yeah,
I think they might have played it at Trade Winds, but that's really early for that song. So that's a great one. And then I think the next note that I have, the Mollusk is the sort of like that's very different without Glenn,
Yeah, dude. Absolutely. And also Buckingham Green, which is also from the Mollusk album.
That's true.
That was one that I noted. It kind of missed Glenn. But yeah, the Mollusk, you think, how do you even play it without Glenn? So it's kind of ends up being a little bit of a different version, It's still good. Like I don't want anyone to think I'm like dissing the quality just because Glenn's not there.
Right.
I heart Glenn is true, but
yeah,
it's just different.
It just doesn't have like as much to it. It doesn't have the like cool solo with it's Glenn who does the
yeah.
So like it's just gone. Like when it gets to that point in the song, it's just not there.
It's all stripped down, mate. It's all stripped down.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very like stripped down, rendition of the Mollusk. So it's just funny to hear it without the keys,
Yeah, totally.
And then you got a couple of other, just awesome songs right around there. Final Alarm, I mean, come on. That's amazing every time.
Yeah, dude. Well, no, and also only the 18th time that was played. So that was definitely
right.
like coming around at that era, and that's a pretty rare song itself. So that's awesome.
Yeah, that's a pretty rare one in general too. And then after that,
fucking Sorry Charlie, dude.
Yeah, and there's a great intro to Sorry Charlie as well. And Diener mentions, I think the actual like name of the person that the song is about. If I'm not mistaken. Well, who knows what the truth really is, but he mentions somebody by name before they start that one.
That's cool. And again, that was a rare one because 21st time that was ever played and 81st time total. So, and I know we had heard it at the Rutgers show the year before, and maybe some other times in that era. It's interesting, some of these rare songs, how they are like cyclical, and it's like they'll break them out for like a tour or two and then like put them back on the shelf.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
And hey, anytime you got Can't Put My Finger on It, I mean, who can complain?
Yeah, dude. And that was another one again. No Glenn, but still, they managed to pull off the extended like opening. Kind of like the psychedelic opening.
Yep.
And so Can't Put My Finger on It's always great. I thought, again, a little bit right in that area of the show a little earlier, I'll Be Your Johnny on the Spot. They were freaking shredding that, and that's got, Claude jamming out awesome and Diener really shredding it. That's the one of the ones I like that. When people argue about Ween being a jam band and shit, And we've kind of, Kenny from Earfloss, when we were talking to him, is like jam adjacent, and I'll Be Your Johnny on the Spot's one of those songs that on the album, it's played a certain way, and they play it similar live, but it's jammed out way more live. And I just think it's a great example of how you might not think of that as a jam song, and yet when they play it live, it really is. You know what I mean? Like the kind of style,
Yeah.
it's like a fast paced, like heavy metal, like kind of song. And you wouldn't necessarily expect that. So I always dig that for that reason. FYI, IMHO.
Well, and what's funny is in between I'll Be Your Johnny on the Spot and Can't Put My Finger on It, they do Never Squeal on the Pusher, and that's another one that, like, at this time that they were playing this, it has just sort of like the standard, like length, but they turned that one, years later, they started turning that one into like the really long, jam out, and that's when the infamous like Claude breakdown, as I call it, where it's just like he just breaks it down on drums all the way to like silence, and then builds it back up again. So just a interesting little tidbit. But this is just sort of like the regular like rendition of it.
Gotcha. Yeah, dude.
After Can't Put My Finger on It, Hot for Teacher, they start it, and typically it's Claude on vocals. Van Halen cover. Hey, we got to pay homage.
Yeah, pay homage to old EVH. EVH RIP.
That's awesome. But he starts it, and then, they're like 10 seconds into it or whatever. Claude does like one line basically, and then he's just like, oh, I can't do it. And then they just stop, and he's like, I just can't do it. It's like I got laryngitis. Like, like it's not happening tonight.
Well, he had just done Final Alarm a few songs earlier, so that's another one he sings.
So I mean, I guess at this point, Claude's basically just saying like, I'm done on vocals. Like, it's not happening. So they just stop it, and then you got fucking Enter Sandman.
Yeah, which I gotta say, I think the Tradewinds version is better, but dude, it's classic. It's classic era Metallica. The Black Album, Enter Sandman. I mean, and it's such a send up. It's such a send up of the genre. Like Giner, like getting all gravelly with his voice, and I mean, it's great.
I would love to hear the conversations that took place when they like decided to play that song for like that tour.
Yeah, for real.
Like, I mean, it's just so good. And
oh yeah, that song is absolutely. So that's the 13th time overall, and like 18th total. It's not a song that's played a lot, ever has. In fact, if you look at it, yeah, it was like a long string. It was 2001. And it was basically like a lot of that tour, and then a few shows after the tour, and then not again until a couple of the 2018 reunion shows. So that's funny. Again, it was like just that time period, just that like tour,
right,
and a few dates after that in the same year.
I think we knew that like it was coming because I had gone to the Tradewinds show, and I'm. I don't know if I had the bootlegs by then, but I mean, I was certainly like paying attention to the set list like every night of like that tour.
Yeah, dude.
And figuring out like what they were playing, and like.
Well, you were always the big Ween forum guy,
Yeah. So I'm sure I knew that like, okay, Enter Sandman's coming tonight, but I'm sure the majority of the people who were at that show had no idea.
Oh yeah, dude.
So
Righteous.
That's pretty fun. That's pretty fun. The fact that like, they could break something like that out, any night of that tour, and people would just be fucking floored. Like, really? Like, fucking Enter Sandman? Like, come on.
Yeah, dude.
So.
No, that's great.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And, yeah. Oh, just that, Licking the Palm for Guava and Mushroom Festival in Hell, like, both kind of go together and are just, like, really brown and old school. And they shred those. I mean, that's really psychedelic and really... and both really rare. Again, Licking the Palm, that was the 11th time ever, 45 total. Mushroom Festival in Hell, 15th time and 50th total. So those are like absolutely the creme de la creme, like, you know, rarities of the show. So they're pretty awesome. Like, I don't even know how many times I've really heard those songs live.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. I mean, you don't really think about, you know, the rarity of something like that. But man, when you really break it down, it's like 45 and 50. It's like, man, that's, you know, that's not a lot of show. That's not a big number at all. You know.
Yeah. No, and I bet you, again, if we look back, a lot of those are old, probably old, because it's Godween Satan, you know, and this was a great tour for Godween Satan because Glenn wasn't there, I think.
Right.
I think that opened up the opportunity for them to really, like, dig up some old stuff. And we're the beneficiaries of that, dude. So that was pretty fucking awesome. And LMLYP, again, even though it didn't have Glenn, was still fantastic. And they really, each member of the band really got their own little solo. You know, they do that most of the time with that song. So it's not trying to say that makes it like special, but like, I think they totally kind of upped it a little bit because they knew they didn't have Glenn. So they each kind of really had a, you know, laid out their own solo. And it was pretty fucking baller.
Right.
But you still miss, like, you know, like they do some of the in some of the jam parts of LMLYP, they kind of have a call and response between like Glenn and Diener a lot of the time. So that was, you know, you could totally, again, man. I mean, I don't want to fucking, you know, be a broken record, but yeah, dude, I miss the guy. But still, it was still a great version of the song.
Totally, man. Totally.
And long, dude. I mean, another one of those 20+ minute, like, you know, versions, I think.
Yeah, I mean, so it's definitely a full night, and you know, a lot of great songs, a lot of great rarities, and you know, it's the quality of the bootleg is great, you know, so it's definitely a great show to go back and listen to. It's on YouTube. Check out it's Bugnish Bockwinkel has the whole show on YouTube.
Yeah, thank you, Bugnish Bockwinkel. Thank you as always. And thank you, Brown Bass. Just to shout out Brown Bass, don't forget, because they got all the Ween set list stats, so they're awesome. Thanks, Brown Bass.
Yeah, absolutely. But just a couple of other things that, like, you know, they talk about and stuff like that. Like I said, they keep mentioning about somebody throwing the balls up on stage. So that just keeps coming back up. Like after like 2-3 different songs, they mention the balls. After going get stuff from the get-go, Diener does say something about they came from DC and somehow it took them about 11 hours.
Yeah, dude.
I don't know if they were stuck in that same traffic jam or what, but, you know, it's just, there you go. Like Diener even says, took them all day to get from DC to Norfolk.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it was just the traffic was a bad news on that day.
Yeah, bad day for traffic, man. Before the final alarm, Diener sends the song out to their friend Johnny. So could it be Johnny Williams? Shout out to Johnny Williams. We don't know if that's who he's talking about, but
can we get confirmation? Anyone know?
Yeah, can we get confirmation on that one?
Check it out. Let us know.
There's a little snippet during Can't Put My Finger on It where basically like the recording kind of like cuts out. It goes right from like the intro like already into you know, like the first line. No big deal, but it's just kind of one of those things I noticed. Actually, in the beginning of it, it's nice in the very beginning of the show. It's nice and loud, and then it's like somebody had like turned down the volume or something. It's funny because it was like that even on my original CDs, and it's the same thing for the YouTube video because it must be the same. It must be the same bootleg. It must be the same recording because I noticed it on both of them. But again, not complaining, just something I noticed.
Would that be a Fred? Would that be a Fred recording?
I don't know. You know, we'll have to check with Fred and see if that was his tapes, if he was at this show or not. Yeah, again, they talk about the people throwing shit up on stage, and Diener, I think Diener and Jenner in LMLYP mention the hot tub again. Like, hey, take you back to my hot tub,
Well, that's a good song to talk about a hot tub in.
Yeah. So he throws in the hot tub during LMLYP. So just those fun things that keep coming up through the show is hot tub and balls.
Yeah. Well, hot and sweaty, hot tub and balls,
So should we take us, this kind of takes us to after the show then?
Yeah, so, dude, my final reflection on the show itself is just what we've said. So, I don't want to belabor it. Great show, like, definitely heavier, definitely browner, like a lot of God, Ween, Satan. So if you like that aspect of Ween, like, the fast metal shit, like, you're definitely going to dig this show. If you heart Glenn, then, you're going to miss Glenn. But but yeah, dude, the whole drive down was fucking nuts. And then I just remember that we also got out of there fast. And so we didn't even like stick around and like check out like the swag and like the merch and stuff. Cause we were just like, dude, it's late, and we knew we had a long fucking drive ahead of us.
One thing I'll throw in, can I just throw in real quick? I think I had forgotten to mention when we did the Trade Winds episode, but I know I had gotten a shirt for that tour, so I must have gotten it at the Trade Winds show. So it was the sort of like light blue shirt that said, on the front said Ween, and then right underneath it said New Hope, PA. So and then on the back had the tour dates. I think it might have been the only shirt, I don't know about, to this day or not, but it certainly was the only one at the time up till that point that said anything about them being from New Hope on it. So I don't know if you remember that one, but it was like a light blue shirt with white lettering. So it had
now that you mention it, I may just be misremembering, because now I sort of remember that I actually had that shirt.
I was just thinking the same thing. I think you had one of those, which we probably just went like smoked cigarettes at the smoking lounge and then went to the merch like during the show. I don't remember it, but maybe it was something like that, because I know I had one of those shirts. I just kind of assumed that I got it at the Trade Winds.
Well, we could have checked in right at the end of the show too, and I'm just not remembering very well, but I know we didn't dawdle too long. We got moving.
Right. So we just jammed it out of there because we had a long drive back, all the way back to PA.
Yeah, dude. And also, like, it's funny, with my bus, we had to meet up for my bus. And so there were also timing considerations for that. We couldn't exactly take all the time in the world. But no, dude, so we jetted out of there. And so as I mentioned, that it was this grueling exodus, or a journey, and the way home was like an exodus. And I seem to remember that on the way back, you were basically just like, dude, I don't want to go to Harrisburg, because we were just exhausted, and it was a long night and a long day. And so it was like we went to your place outside of Reading, Fleetwood, and probably got like an hour of sleep. Like, I think we laid down for just like an hour, if that. And then you dropped me off in Reading at the Greyhound bus station in like Center City, Reading, like downtown Reading, Pennsylvania, which I think that was the first time I'd ever been there. I don't know about you. Was that dropped me off at that bus terminal? But yeah, dude, it's
I think I might have taken you to that Reading terminal like once or twice. I definitely remember going there and where it is and everything, but yeah, man, I mean, I apologize for not taking you any further.
Oh, it's cool, dude. I mean, water under the bridge. But like, then fucking, I'm swearing a lot tonight, so apologies to people who are sensitive to that, I guess. But yeah, it must have been like 5 a.m., 6 a.m., really early bus from Reading. And again, it stops like so many places. Like Reading to Harrisburg should be like an hour from Harrisburg. And it must have been like an hour and 45-minute, 2-hour trip, because it stops like everywhere. And dude, so anyway, so of course, no sleep. I've been traveling since like midday the day before, or before midday the day before is when I left State College. So I'd been traveling forever. And and then just getting to Harrisburg. And it was crazy because, I had a little bit of a layover as I was waiting for another bus. And I totally like went next door to get a bite to eat at this diner. And it's like, if anyone's ever been to the Harrisburg Greyhound, like, or the Harrisburg bus terminal, it's kind of like, skeezy. It's like, I'm not going to say it's a ghetto or anything like that, because I don't think that's true, but it's kind of skeezy and whatnot. And so this little like freaking diner, is kind of gross. And I just remember that there was like a little dead cockroach on my food, on my plate. Like as I was eating this club sandwich, just like saw one under the plate. And it was just fucking, I'm like out. And I was so tired that I didn't even say anything. I was like, whatever, dude. And I just like slid it off. Like, I was like, all right, I'm going to drink my soda and leave. But
oh, man.
But yeah, dude. And then so anyway, I'm waiting for the bus. And then it's like late. It ends up being like late because apparently it broke down and they had to send a school bus to pick us all up. So, if you can imagine, like, Greyhound has all that extra storage underneath, and then you have your, like, overhead storage, and, like, and then suddenly all these people that were supposed to be on a Greyhound are, like, piling into a school bus. And I remember it must have been, like, a Penn State women's, like, sports team or a State College high school girls, like, sports team was, like, coming home on the bus, too. So they were all, like, just being, like, really, like, impatient and, like, not having a good time, like oh my god, this is so terrible, like a lot of that going on. And but then also them all having their like gear like all over their laps and like sprawling over all the seats because there's nowhere to store anything on a school bus. So, and then the seats don't recline on a school bus, dude. It was like, that was an era of books, so I'm sure I must have had a book to read on the drive on the bus ride. But I just being exhausted, dude. And I did the math. And I must have been in transit for like 22 out of like a 25-hour period, from like noon one day until early afternoon the next. Like I spent like, an hour or less on your like sleeping on your sofa and like a couple hours at the show. And the whole rest of the time I was like on a bus or like in a car. So it was kind of rough.
Dude, I mean, when I look back on the entire experience and when I look at, the dates of, that tour, I mean, I think we just wanted one of those shows to like work out so bad that it was just kind of like, okay, which of these shows can we make it to? And
yeah, dude,
being that was a Friday, we just kind of like told ourselves, okay, we can make it there and back in one night. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, it's Friday night. Like, it's Virginia. It's not that far. And it's like, that's pretty far. For you to go from Pennsylvania, I mean, either State College or Harrisburg or Reading, it's like to make it all the way down to Virginia, and then you're going to be there until, basically like, midnight or whatever. And then drive all the way back to Pennsylvania that same night. That's pushing it,
Yeah, dude. I mean, that was, like by car from State College on a good day, it would be like roughly 7 hours or so. And the bus always adds extra time, like I said. But that's, like you're saying, that's a long freaking time, even if it goes well to like drive one way and then come back the same night. Like, I mean, we were young, dumb, and, full of, what, like they say in Point Break. But yeah, dude, I'm with you. Like, I feel like we just like really wanted a show, and the Rutgers show 420 the year before, and this was like the closest show to like April 20th. It was like early April, and it was like, man, we got to go. And it was also, I think there weren't a lot of shows on the tour that were really accessible to us at that time, I guess. But man, and I'm glad we went for it. Because we have this crazy story to tell. But when you think about, like, we should have known better than to think we were going to pull that off, like unscathed.
Yeah, like when I look at the tour dates, I mean, the night before this, they played at the 930 Club. And, It's like we should have just been like, okay, look, even though at the time.
Why didn't we go to that one?
Well, I mean, at the time, it's like neither one of us knew anything really about DC. You know what I mean? Like I think I was probably there as a kid, like once, on like a school trip or something before this time in my life. I mean, obviously I've been there a handful of times, since 2001, but we should have just figured out a way to make that work. I mean, it's like, okay, at least it's, 3 hours closer than fucking Norfolk, Virginia.
No, DC, I mean, when you look at the list of shows on that tour, obviously you made it to the trade winds in New Jersey. But then you got like the only ones that are like even close, really. You're talking like Boston ain't that close, and Columbus and Buffalo. And then you got like that's like the closest ones, really, besides DC. So yeah, I mean, looking back, we probably should have rocked the DC show. Which was fairly different. Like about at least half the songs were different from the Norfolk show. So that's also a nice thing is like there's a good amount of variety between the shows on that tour.
Right.
They definitely mixed it up.
And again, like we said about a lot of our, our shows from, our youth in general, it's kind of a good example of, hey man, no GPS, nothing to tell you in that moment. Like, hey, you're about to be stuck in traffic, take the next exit and just, take the fucking back roads way or whatever. You're still going to be, doing better. There was nothing to help us like that at that time. It was just, we had our paper, our map or whatever we had that we had, figured out of like, this is how you get there. And that's it. You know what I mean? Like, we were just stuck, Yeah,
you do what you can do, and every trip doesn't work out. But the show was still good, everybody, and check it out on YouTube or wherever you can find it, because then you don't have to get stuck in traffic on the way there and like get stuck waiting for a bus on the way home. Like you just listen to the show on your computer. So that's what I would just say is like, and enjoy some hardcore Diener. Like Diener's pretty awesome in this show. So is as final thoughts. So is Dave. Slapping the bass on like LMNYP, like really sweet, really brown.
It's like I said for the Trade Wind show. I mean, without Glenn, you only got 3 guys through a lot of these songs playing instruments, because it's just with Aaron on vocals when he's not playing guitar. There's only 3 guys playing instruments in that band. And you know what? This is hate to keep saying it, but I mean, this is when they were at the top of their game. You know what I mean? And those guys were not fucking around at this time in their career. So they brought it home. That's for sure.
Yeah, dude, they were rock and roll heroes at this time period for sure. But yeah, dude. So I mean, that's Norva, man. April 6th, 2001, the Norva in Norfolk, Virginia.
And you know what's funny? I can't do the math this quickly, but April 6th is my twin's birthday.
Yeah, that's right. That's cool.
X amount of years later, my twin boys were born. So that's a good date.
It's good memories after all.
Well, so that does it for the Norva show. Should we wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving?
Yeah, everyone have a happy, safe Thanksgiving. Hey, there's a crazy pandemic going on, so take that shit into account, please. But everyone be safe and be happy, and check us out on Patreon too. And I want to say, a thank you. It's Thanksgiving, so I'll just say thank you to anyone who listens and people who enjoy the show. We appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're really hoping to do, a couple more of these before the end of the year. So we hope that you all stick with us, and it's great to do another old school show episode. And yeah, man, thank you so much to anyone who's listening to this. We love you.
Yeah. All right. Later on, everybody.
Peace. We out.
Greetings. My name is John Pourabille, here to tell you about Stages, my new album coming out November 27th, 2020, to Bandcamp and all major streaming platforms. 2020 has been a difficult year for me and everybody I know, And I wanted these 13 new songs to reflect all the different shades of anxiety and uncertainty that we felt living through a global pandemic, a period of political turmoil and protest, and a time of economic turmoil and upheaval as well. I recorded these songs all from the messy basement of my own home, and the styles are all over the map. There's straight-ahead rock, piano ballad, folk, country, soul, synth pop. There's even a pastiche of a 60s novelty song about lovable monsters. The album is broad and diverse and anxious and messy, and I hope that you find something to connect with when you listen to Stages, November 27th, 2020, wherever you get your music from. I'm John Porabil, and you can find me at John Porabil on Twitter or johnporabil.bandcamp.com.
Yeah, you're gonna miss